Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We have a really interesting video here today. Did you know that Cathie Wood was like a profound Catholic religious person? I did not know that. In fact, I didn't even know that ARK Innovation, the name of the ARK ETF, which is like her flagship ETF innovation fund, is based upon a religious idea. I didn't even know that. There's a new article came out that's really interesting. I am not going to just like purely summarize the article. I want to read through the article and give my thoughts in real time. So if you haven't read this article, think of this as like the audio version of the article, and I'll be reading it at a decent enough speed so you can like get the gist of it. But I also want to give my analysis on it as well. Now, why was this interesting before we get into the article? The reason this was super interesting to me is because religion is such an interesting concept, and I'm not here to give my perspective on whether religion is good or bad or specific religions. I don't care about that. But the way religion influences your worldview is a really interesting thing to think about, especially if you're in the world of stocks and investing, because stocks and investing and money in general is supposed to be more secular. It's not supposed to have these religious connotations to it, because business is business, and business can be dirty, business can be good, but business is business. It is ruthless, it is cutthroat, and you don't think of like sort of the sort of feel-good nature of religion and the salvation that religion provides you when you think of something like business, because it's capitalism and it's ruthless at its core. So for ARK Innovation and for Cathie Wood to sort of be this religious figure, under the hood, which I didn't even know about because she doesn't talk about it that publicly. I found a podcast the other day of her talking about her relationship with faith, but I didn't know about it because she always is talking about economics and inflation and stuff. It's a very interesting concept, primarily because some points of this article where it's talking about her having faith in the stuff that she picks. And that's when I was just like, look, I love Cathie, love her arguments, but when someone brings that up, it gets kind of interesting because you got to analyze, all right, does this person think they're like the chosen one or something, or how are they conceptualizing it? I mean, these are interesting things to think about. They're not good or bad, but they're definitely interesting to think about, which I want to talk about today in this article. So let's go to the article right here. As you can see at the top, ARK Invest CEO Cathie Wood on everything from deflation to Elon Musk. This is the FT magazine, and this was an interesting article, just came out March 3rd, 2022. Cathie Wood's favorite scripture is Psalms 91, the hymn of protection. The founder of ARK Invest starts telling me the story of the miracle of Dunkirk, when Allied soldiers were rescued from doomed French bases in 1940. A group of soldiers were huddled, saying Psalms 91, she says, and they were one of the few groups of soldiers saved on that day. Wood's 8-year-old investment management firm is named after the Ark of the Covenant, the chest said to have the 10 Commandments, which was taken by the Israelis into battle. Again, I did not know that. I did not know that that's the reason why ARK was named that way. ARK also has to do with battle. Wood continues battling the traditional world order is what we're doing. Interesting. That goes to the growth innovation idea, right? In less than a decade, Wood has emerged as the public face of a tech-driven bull market on steroids. She championed actively managed exchange funds, ETFs, a type of investment that combines the stock picking normally associated with mutual funds and the convenience and tax benefits of ETFs. Her big concentrated bet on disruptive innovation, borderline outlandish predictions on everything from shares in electric car maker Tesla, which she was the first to announce it would go to 4,000 in 2018. She was correct on that. So the price of Bitcoin and her savvy use of social media, very savvy use, ARK's innovation content strategy, helped to drive assets in ARK's overall stable of ETF to a value of $61 billion at their peak in February last year. The share price was at $161 roundabout for the ARK Innovation Fund, or I think like $169, making her the most prominent, scrutinized female investor in the world. That is also very true. Whether you like her or not, she gets a lot of hate for just purely being a female investor. There's a lot of sexist stuff that's said about her, which I personally hate, but that is true that happens. ARK rose during a period characterized by retail trading, meme stocks, and surging cryptocurrencies, with thousands of punters opening new brokerage accounts online and using Twitter and Reddit to exchange investing ideas. By freely sharing ARK's research, Wood developed a cult following online. This is true. This is why someone like me is talking about it right now. Where to her disciple, she's Aunt Cathie or Cathie Bay, and when she has spawned a range of merchandise, including a t-shirt that depicts her riding a bull with the slogan, "The Queen of the Bull Market." Another just reads, "In Cathie we trust." So she is definitely seen as this type of larger-than-life figure that has this persona to be able to talk to the world and to be able to command attention from the world. As you can see, the QQQ and ARK's ETF right here. So 2017 is kind of when it came, or Jan 2018 is when it came online. It had that massive run up, and now it's backing all the way back down. Wood has fans at the highest level of finance as well. Regardless of performance trends, it's clear that Cathie is disrupting the asset management industry in order to capture the imagination of a new generation of investors. She has demonstrated great respect for the retail investor by democratizing access to information. A top investor in growth companies tells me, "I admire Cathie's spirit and willingness to put her head above the parapet." Now, this is true because Cathie we'll get back into the article in a second, has really, this idea of transparently showing what you're doing every day. There's a symbiotic relationship to this. One, for the retail investor. Now the retail investor, if I'm investing in a Robinhood or a Roku or something, I get the comfort of knowing that Cathie Wood, this like queen of finance that people are saying in Cathie we trust, is also investing in my stock, or she's not investing in my stock. So I have kind of like a baseline assumption every single day to be able to analyze if this is a good stock or if this is a bad stock. Whether that's a good metric to determine is probably, it's up to you. It's subjective. I don't think it's the best metric. But nonetheless, it gives you kind of like a baseline as a retail investor, and a retail investor is generally less educated than a regular investor. I say that as speaking as a retail investor myself. So like if you see this institution, arc, innovation, larger than life person leading the company like Cathie Wood selling or buying a stock, it definitely influences, especially if you see it every single day, how you think of it as a retail investor. Additionally, it's good for ARK, because if they buy 100,000 shares of Roku tomorrow, like there's millions of people that get these emails or these newsletters or these tweets that ARK bought 100,000 shares of Roku. Well, why did they buy 100,000 shares of Roku? Let's Google what Roku is, and then Roku gets pumped, right? It's kind of the nature of how you like get attention for a stock. Now, the inverse is happening right now. There's a really bad sentiment around growth stocks, which is why people don't want to be in any of the ARK funds that are happening right now. But it is something to think about when we analyze her effect on the overall market. Now, let's go over here. Wood's track record at AllianceBernstein was both volatile and underwhelming. This is the old firm she used to work for. According to Morningstar, they say that Wood's investing style was a roller coaster ride for clients, and that it found greater traction with retail investors than when the institutional market. This is back in 2000. Even so, Wood continued to display the same conviction that they admired before. She's disciplined and missionary in her approach. She's an evangelist for tech, and it's infectious. We all love a great story. She does her research. She believes what she believes. Sometimes when the market moves against her, she digs in more. So, as a result of this, on a glorious August day in 2012, Wood returned home from work to an uncharacteristically quiet house. Her 3 children were at summer camp, and it was the first time she'd been alone that long since she'd moved to Connecticut in the mid-1990s. I'm kind of stunned by the silence, Wood recounts. I walk into the kitchen to the counter, and I'm not happy. I'm not sad. I'm just in a zen state. So this is happening in August 2012. She comes home, and she just doesn't feel happy. She doesn't feel sad. She's just feeling what she's feeling. Boom. That's when it hit me. Why don't you apply the technologies that have been disrupting other industries to your own? Think about it. Your industry finances all of these disruptions that have changed other industries, and it hasn't embraced them itself. Within 5 minutes, the key foundations of what will become ARK's approach came to her, adopting open source research, embracing online media, and investing in innovation. But now, before we continue, those 3 key pillars are the key pillars of the ARK Innovation Fund. They embrace open source research. All the research they find is all the research that anyone can access on the internet. So they pay a lot of money to the researchers to be able to find that research, but nonetheless, it all exists out there. Anyone can be able to find that research. They embrace online media. Why do they embrace online media? Because they are very, very transparent, as I talked about above. And being transparent means that they get the benefit of other people learning about what they're talking about, but they also get to propagandize their thoughts and ideas throughout the world with Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, like podcasts, newsletters, all of these different things to get people to actually care about what they're doing. And again, we've seen in this market, if you can't get people to care, then, people are not going to care. And then they invest in innovation. Those are her 3 key pillars. Now, this is where it gets interesting, okay? Wood tells me the epiphany marked the culmination of 6 years of prayer. From about 2006, she had struggled to make sense of the changing financial landscape. On the advice of someone at her church, Walnut Hill Community Church, Wood had spent each morning reading from a devotional as her coffee was brewing, asking God to show me what to do. When it all came together, she knew I had to start this firm, and I knew it would be successful. I knew it would be difficult too. So, God showed her what to do. Wood believes she was born with the gift of faith, and it deepened through her testing times like the stock market crashes in 2000 and 2008 and her divorce. She told an interviewer in 2020 on Jesus Calling, a podcast. When we discuss her religious practices, Wood chooses her words carefully. Before I make a big move, I will always pray, she says. Prayer is a form of meditation too. It's a very grounding experience. People who meditate deeply experience the same thing I do, and in those moments I get answers. The Holy Spirit, if you want to just dwell on that, is the same thing as the Force. Okay, so let's talk about that for a little bit. That part, when I read that part of the article, so there's 2 ways to think about it. Number 1, she says, before I make a big decision, I pray. And she's metaphorically comparing prayer to meditate. And I mean, when I make a big decision, I meditate as well. Now, I'm not the most religious person in the world, so I'm not like kind of asking for the answers from like a supreme being, but I don't meditate either. I kind of have my own way of getting through big decisions in my life, like I think all of us do. It's a very subjective process. So I'm not going to criticize her for the subjective process. I don't think anyone should criticize her for the subjective process. But when she says, and in those moments I get answers, the Holy Spirit, if you want to just dwell on that, is the same thing as the Force, that's where it's a little bit confusing to me. It's like, okay, so when you get answers, when you're, so for example, when she sold Palantir, took a $400 million loss on 380 million, but goodness, it's a lot of money she lost for her clients on Palantir. Did you make a prayer and did you get the answer that that's what you have to do from a supernatural force? And if that's the case, that's fine. It's just me as an investor, I didn't know about ARK's religious kind of connotations. And now I'm realizing, wait a second, I'm not that religious. So if I'm not that religious and you're trusting this supreme being to give you the answer to, like, for example, sell Palantir, which I'm like making an example of, but that's kind of the hypothetical scenario she's painting, which is that in those moments before I make a big decision, I will always, before I make a big move to me implies like buying or selling a certain stock or entering a position, etc. I will always pray. In that situation, I would feel a little bit uncomfortable, just personally speaking. And if you don't, leave it in the comments. If you do, leave it in the comments. I'm really I'm excited to know what other people think about this, but it's a little confusing. It's like, well, if you're saying that, God is telling you to do this, or some religious figure is telling you to do this, and I don't believe in that same force that is telling you to do this. I just believe in research and data. And instead of, or coupling with research and data, you're also using the supreme being to give you the decision-making praxis to do something. That's a little confusing for me. That's a little scary for me as well, just to be honest. I wouldn't want to trust my money in someone like that. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about Cathie Wood. I'm not saying she's a bad person. I am a big Cathie Wood bull. I obviously don't like that she sold Palantir, but it is a little weird for her to make that claim, and it's kind of scary to me for someone to be that larger than life and then say that they get supreme answers to what they want to do. I'm not saying that it's wrong to pray or to meditate or to make a decision. It's the question of getting the answers in those moments, because we all have different ways of getting the answers. We all have these non-natural ways of just knowing what to do. I mean, at its very core, you can call it intuition. Intuition grounds us and tells us what to do. So, if intuition is okay, selling Palantir and buying something else, that's an intuitive mood. It's just a question of how you frame that to the people that are investing in your fund, because when you say, I get the answers when I pray, that's not implying intuition, that's implying a supernatural force that is giving you the answer via the Holy Spirit, which is what she says. So it's just an interesting thing to think about. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just interesting. And it's something I did not know about Cathie Wood for the past year. This article was my first introduction to the fact that she is a devout religious person and that her religious views impact the way she invests in companies. So last couple parts of this that we'll read. In January 2014, Wood founded ARK. For the first 3 years, she funded the business with her own money. Wood received an early investment of around $20 million for her first 4 ETFs from a former hedge manager, Bill Huang, whom she met when they were both advisors from a religious group that ministers to young people on Wall Street. Huang is now infamous for the implosion in March 21 of his family offices, Arcos Capital Management. I believe he lost some billions of dollars in a couple of days as a result of that implosion in March 2021. That was pretty bad. A person with knowledge of the matter says Huang admires Wood's expertise in growth stocks, but that the investment in ARK was a show of support rather than strategic. Huang declined to comment for this article. So again, this is sort of they both came from a religious group, and that connection allowed Cathie to raise those initial $20 million. And one thing to understand about raising money, because I have a startup, so I'm in the process of it, is connections are what get you the money more than anything else. If we're being honest right here. And that's pretty much the last thing we're going to read right here. The former employee says Wood feels very much on a journey doing God's work. She's moved by forces beyond the asset management game. She has confidence from her craft, but she also feels like she's on the right side of, I don't know what to call it. It gives her energy and strength. The God element is more a guide of her life path. God is not telling her to buy or sell shares. Now, I mean, I hope that's the case. I hope God is not telling her how to buy or sell shares. Real quick, last thing I wanted to read right here. She has a unique gift of being a futurist, very discerning of where things are going in her world, a great sensitivity to how God is moving and speaking. He won't say whether he's an investor in ARK. And this is a Reverend Brian Morey, one of Walnut Hill's lead pastors. Walnut Hill is the church that Cathie Wood goes. So he is saying she has a unique gift of being a futurist, very discerning of where things are going in her world, a great sensitivity to how God is moving and speaking. He's kind of comparing her to God in that respect. Look, this is very interesting. I don't know if this is actually how she's, when the former employee said God is not telling her how to buy and sell stocks. Obviously it's not. They spent a lot of money on research with ARK, but the core premise of this article is that there is a world in which Cathie is praying, Cathie is getting ideas, and her decision-making logic is also coming from things that are supernatural in the big moves that she has to make. Now, those are definitely influenced by research and like all of the fancy stuff that she does to try to come to a conclusion that is all technical. But there is a level of religious connotation to it, which is just very interesting to me to like observe from this article. I didn't know that this was happening. I'm still trying to come to my thoughts on it. It's kind of weird, if I'm being honest. Just as an investor, I kind of feel weird in it. Just flat. I'm just giving my straight thoughts. I'm not anti-religion or anything. It's just kind of weird because with business, you're not really supposed to have that much religious stuff involved in it. You're supposed to be buying and selling based upon facts and data, a little bit of intuition, but it's not supposed to be super, oriented through faith, because in business, when you have faith, a lot of stuff goes to crap, and there is no faith involved. You could have faith that GameStop's going back to the moon or AMC's going to the moon, and it may just never do. You could have faith that Bitcoin will go to $1 million, and it may never do that because of external market conditions, which is what we've seen with Cathie Wood saying that the market is wrong. She's not wrong, and a lot of people are like, you can't say that because the market isn't really ever wrong. They can be wrong in individual stocks and stuff, but from the macro, if the market is saying, hey, we're just not valuing companies in this way, that means that the market is reacting to what's going on in the world. So interesting stuff. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I did not know that Cathie Wood was a devout Christian. Let me know what your thoughts are. How do you think about religion in the context of business, and how do you also think in the context of her ability to pick stocks based upon, making these big moves and praying before she actually makes them? Thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I will see you in the next one.